This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Sean Preston.
Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today, we have a great neighbor on with us, and that is the Michelle Steffens from MyoDynamic Health. How are you, hon?
I am doing extremely well. I'm excited for this. Thank you for having me.
Very exciting to have you on the show. I know you're a super busy person, so really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule so you and I can have an awesome conversation and let our residents in Barrie, Midhurst, and in Simcoe County know about you and about your awesome business, because I've only heard great things.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So I know from afar you do a lot of different things. So let's start unpacking it and tell our listeners a little bit more about your business.
Yeah. So I can go like almost a decade ago, I guess I can begin at the starting point. I actually have a marketing and advertising background. So my husband and I are going on our 7-year wedding anniversary this weekend.
Cool.
And he opened up, so he went to he did human kinetics and he did like post-grad for orthotics at Western University. And his father is a family doctor here in Barrie. So he kind of always grew up in like the healthcare field, you know, he was always kind of surrounded by like that type of industry, I guess you could say. And he always had like a desire, being an athlete himself, like when he hurt himself or whatever, to physio care, like chiro needs, all of that type of stuff. So it was then that he decided to start his own business in orthotics. So again, like a decade ago now, he actually started at his dad's doctor's office. He was just kind of seeing patients here and there. And then every time he would see a patient, he would refer them out to, if someone had plantar fasciitis or something of the sort, he would dispense orthotics. But then he thought, okay, well, this person could also benefit from physio or chiropractic care or even a massage type thing. So the idea kind of sparked in his head, well, why don't I open up a multidisciplinary clinic? Like, why don't I get a larger space and have a team that can be like a one-stop shop type thing? So just over 7 years ago now, I guess, we were on our honeymoon. And again, I was working at an advertising agency. And he's like, Michelle, I need you to quit. Like, I need your help. I need you to be on board. And I was like, I'm not quitting. Like, this is what I went to school for. Like, I'm all for supporting your passions, and it's our honeymoon. And I feel compelled to help you here, but this is kind of where my passion lies. But then I kind of thought about it. And at the end of the day, where my passion kind of lies is in like customer service, that type of, when you like visit a local business or something, they know more than just like, hey, how are you? Have a seat type thing. Like, I really like the interaction between the person sitting behind the desk and the person coming into a clinic. So yeah, I up and left my job and I started working for him. And way back when, we were actually called Step Up. Step Up, I mean, the idea of foot, he's a podorthist. So the idea kind of went hand in hand. And it wasn't until I want to say like 5 years ago that we rebranded to MyoDynamic Health. And half the reason for the rebrand is because we became a multidisciplinary clinic. So we weren't just podorthists anymore. We were offering all the other types of care as well. And yeah, so I want to say ever since I don't have a healthcare background. Like, I don't have like a kin degree or anything of the sort. I was kind of the person wearing multiple hats of doing, the admin, the email campaigns, HR, payroll. Like, I just became this human that just kind of touched a little bit of the business in every different little aspect. And I have really enjoyed it. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but it's been really great. So yeah, we've been open and operational now for almost a decade, and it's been going really great.
So he used the honeymoon on you, eh?
He threw that on me.
He
Like,
suckered
hey,
you in.
just got married. Do you mind, and I was like, well, one, I don't want to work for you. Like, you're not going to be my boss. And also, so my parents own their own business. So they've obviously worked alongside of each other for a handful of years. And it was kind of a weird concept for me. Like, I've always, like worked, like kind of been in like a management position, but I was like, well, now I'm going to have my spouse like as like a business partner. And I think it just took a little bit of processing for me to be like, okay, well, I'm leaving this advertising agency role, and I'm coming into a healthcare role, which like originally it's not that like my burning desire was to wake up and answer foot questions for a living, you
Yeah.
know? It wasn't like, yes, let's get you a pair of orthotics. But I think it's just like, you know, the business behind it, and like, you know, the the idea of like helping the community and providing like a service to the community that's really top notch. It's not just like, you know, we really kind of vet who works for the clinic, because we do want to provide that superior type of care and knowledge behind it type thing. So yeah, but yes, the honeymoon thing was a lot to just kind of take in all at once.
Not, you know, it's hard to just go into business like to begin with. You got to make the
Mhm.
leap of faith, and then everything's on your shoulders. You're not answering anybody but yourself. But then to go and do that with a significant other is
Yeah.
another, you know, challenge in itself. It's not a normal question I ask, but it's a super relevant, and I'm too curious not to ask the question. How has that been working with your significant other?
Yeah, so it's changed over time. Originally, when we had like, you know, only a handful of staff work there, Dan would come up to the front desk and I would be like sitting behind a computer, and he'd be like, "Hey, Michelle, can I get you to do a task?" I'd be like, "Huh, like I'm doing my own thing, you know, like why are we so professional with one another? This is so super weird." Um, but I think we're just like we're both really easygoing people. Like people like the staff at the clinic, like they know kind of how we interact with each other. I'm like an extremely sarcastic person. So even if like a remark is made or like, "Hey, can I get you to do this?" I'll be like, "Mm-mm," you know, but it's like a joking type of relationship
Yeah.
as opposed to like all seriousness kind of thing. I also think it's important to work at like an easygoing environment, you know, like you spend a lot of the time with the people that you work with. But it was kind of a weird, like we'd both get home from work and it's not like you don't ask the question like, "Hey, how was work today?" Like I
Yeah.
know how
Right.
his day was. Like I know the patients he saw, I know what he did, I know the hours he worked. So it was like it kind of like took away from that conversation. Um, but I mean, yeah, it's been great. Like I absolutely like and now I obviously well, I have 2 kids, so I'm not back into the office all day every day. I do a lot of my work from home. But every Tuesday I do go into the office and, you know, kind of when I'm needed or if there's like an admin shortage kind of thing, I'll go in and run the front desk. But yeah, no, it's kind of fun. It is yeah, there's some days where it's like we're kind of in the trenches and we're like, "What the heck is going on?"
Right.
But for the most part, it's been a fairly relaxed past 10 years, I would say.
Very cool. I mean, humor is the spice of life, right? If you can have fun doing what you're doing and you're passionate enough to do what you do, it makes it not a job, right? You're
Yeah,
just out there having
for
fun,
sure.
right? That's
Yep,
what it's
I
all
agree.
about. Okay, so we've got a good insight and in depth into your journey. I want to kind of unpack the first question about like the business and like the different services that you guys offer. So anybody who's listening to the show has got like a little bit more of a robust understanding of, if I'm thinking about myodynamic health, I should know that they do this, this, and this, and what are the differences?
Yeah. So again, way back when having Dan as our like clinic owner and certified podorthist, what a podorthist does, because I feel like podorthist is kind of like a word that not your average Joe really like what the
Probably
heck
not.
is a podorthist? What is a
Right.
podiatrist? What is a chiropodist? Like there's so many different podists, you know? So he is a regulated health professional that can manufacture and dispense custom orthotics. Um, so not only does he just like do the like impressions or the scans or whatever, he does the gait analysis. And we actually also have our on-site lab. So not a lot of like podorthic clinics can manufacture their own orthotics. So we have a lab where we literally do everything from start to finish. So as soon as a patient walks in, we do their analysis, we get their molds, we do whatever we need to do, and we manufacture them. So we have a lab tech does that whole thing, so start to finish, that's what we do. And then they can also do like compression socks. So people with like lymphedema and all of that kind of stuff. Custom knee braces is a huge one, especially for like ACL, MC, whatever, like tears, all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So We dispense custom knee braces as well. And then aside from the podorthic field, we have, I want to say maybe like 40 to 50 staff now we have chiropractors, we have a bunch of registered massage therapists, we have physiotherapists, and we also now more recently have a registered acupuncturist as well. So I feel like it's kind of like this all-encompassing type of healthcare facility that if someone comes in with a certain need, for example, like they have low back pain, they call us and they're like, where do I go? The kind of cool thing about us is that there's multiple different avenues that we can kind of take to get that person back on their rehab plan and like journey, So, okay, like let's start you off with like a chiropractic assessment, if they feel like, physio or like maybe in conjunction with massage is the best route to take, then we very much so work collaboratively as a team to kind of figure out the best treatment plan for that patient. And again, it's very, very much so like if this person specializes in, vertigo or concussions, like we're going to start them off there and see kind of where that nets like takes us.
Right. Okay. Are there any like myths or misconceptions that you hear from clients when it comes to any one of the services that you guys offer?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a few in healthcare. I mean, Dr. Google is everyone's best friend. So I feel like that can give you a few different like answers and, maybe some worries or some scares, or at the end of the day, like what is this going to do to kind of help me? I mean, there's the standard, there's like a handful of people that maybe have like a fear of chiropractors and like the idea of an adjustment, just maybe because they don't actually know the research behind it, or they're just not aware of, what it is that we're actually solving, like what the root of the issue is, like what are those cracks that I'm hearing versus it actually being like an air bubble type thing. And again, I'm no healthcare professional by any means. But I would also say the idea of like a custom orthotic, like, hey, if you have like low back pain or if you have foot pain, like what is this like little insert gonna do for me to help relieve my pain type thing. And I think it just comes from, what I find to really help is when people have like a concern or like, like some sort of fear or like question, I always just get them in for an assessment to say like, hey, at the end of the day, just come in to like chat with them, and if you don't want like an adjustment, or if you don't think orthotics are the right thing for you, like they have the education behind it. Like let them explain to you what the benefit would be, what the risks are, that kind of thing. Because our admin team is like, they're very well versed and trained to handle different like, hey, I have sciatica, or like, how we route them to a certain professional. But at the end of the day, it's the professionals themselves that are going to steer them in the right direction of what they should versus should not do. And one thing, like specifically with our podorthist too, if someone doesn't need or could not benefit from like a certain medical device, we're not going to throw that at you,
Right.
A lot of the time too, if someone comes in saying like, hey, I have foot pain, like maybe an orthotic isn't the answer, but maybe some like physio rehab could be the answer to that, So again, just like getting them into the clinic and having the professionals guide them in the direction that they should be going to. Because when it comes to your body, I mean, this is the only place you have to really live in, so you want to take care of it. And I can appreciate the fact that if things are like fearful, or if Google's telling you one thing, but I feel like a lot of people have peace of mind once they come in, ask those questions. Like some people come in with a list of questions, like, what does this do? What is the benefit of this? Like, what should I expect 2 to 3 weeks down the road, So it's really up to them to just kind of give them a peace of mind. Especially just with the unknown. No one has questions about a massage. When you come in for a massage, like, hey, I have this pain, I have this pain. They kind of go through a health history on what they can work at. I think it's just a few in particular avenues of the healthcare industry that are like pose as what is acupuncture? What is it really helping? What are the benefits versus the risks of that type thing?
Yeah. I mean, knowledge is power, right? Like you said, Dr. Google, you could go on Google and go down any rabbit hole and find
Which I mean,
misinformation.
I've done myself a million times before.
Yeah. Yeah. Your dog gets red eyes. You start Googling it and all of a sudden you're losing your mind. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you've got 30 days to live and you're just like planning your next 30 days of life. So I can totally appreciate that. I think that it's not necessarily so much in our industry because like physio, chiro, massage, or it's a pretty well-known thing. I think it's just like more or less, yes, of the education behind it, how it can help, like what exactly it is that they treat. And I think it just goes to show, like 2, 3 weeks down the road when they're like realizing that, they don't have that pain anymore, or else they're like progressing and they're getting better, that they realize, okay, I don't really know what it is that they're doing, but something's helping here,
Yeah. Like you said, when people like they come into the clinic and then they feel like this sense of relief because
Mhm.
they got educated, they know that they're at a place that, the business knows what they're doing. It still mind boggles me that people will come into a professional establishment. And look, I get it. I'm not saying that everybody's created equal because there are some shitty people out there. But people kind of treat everybody with the same kind of broad brush where they think they're coming into your place of business, especially yours. You've been around for over 10 years.
Mhm.
People know about you guys in the city of Barrie, certainly me. And they're coming in thinking that you're just going to take them for your money, or that you're not going to take care of them, or that you don't have their expressed interest as the number one concern in how you guys operate and take care of your business and your clients. It blows my mind that people still think that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, maybe the industry has had like, its fair share of, maybe treatments that didn't go according to plan, or like it didn't give the end result that the patient was kind of hoping for. I'll always remember there was this one time, like for example, an orthotic isn't just something that you make out of like felt, for example. Like it's not like an arts and crafts kind of thing. There's actual science behind it. The podorthists like manufacture it specifically to your needs. It's not just like, here's an insole, like now we're going to put it in your shoe and everything is going to be better. We had one patient once, actually, it wasn't even a patient. They were just looking to buy some like orthotic materials at the end of the day because they made the orthotics themselves. Um, but again, if there's no human kinetic background to kind of figure out like, does a metatarsal pad need to be here? If so, like why? You know what I mean? Like there needs to be a sense of, hey, I did go to school for this and I learned how to, I learned scientifically and like from a body perspective how to fix this. Like I wouldn't know how to make an orthotic. Like I could cut a piece of paper out and like put it in your shoe and be like, well, that looks like it fits, but that's not what it is. Like there's more to it than that. So yeah, I always just I mean, one, I take my hat off. These people have gone to school for years specifically to like research and understand, this area of the body, or, so like let's not question that. Let's like have faith that, they know what they're doing and, they passed. So they're registered and they're a healthcare professional.
Well, they also have to pass you guys
Mhm.
as the owner. So there's a level there that not a lot of people would think about in terms of, who they are as human beings and how do they treat other people, and are they going to treat your clients the way that you would treat them, and they pass that bar as well.
Yeah. And I think that's a little bit of our onboarding process too. So again, because I have no medical background, like I couldn't tell you how to heal sciatica. I don't know. But whenever we do our interviews, I'm always one of the first people to interview the professional or even the admin or whatever. And I'm more so to like from a culture perspective, like, we've maintained like a really great we call it the mile fam because like we're not just like, yes, we're colleagues, but like we have a baseball league in the summertime, like, we have like staff events and stuff like that. So we really do, like, being a husband and wife owned business, we don't want to create an environment that's just like, okay, clock in, clock out. Like we like seeing like the friendships evolve within the clinic. We like seeing like, whenever I go into the staff room and there's like chatter about, what we did this weekend, or it's my kid's birthday coming up, or whatever that may be. That's what kind of brings like me joy in noticing that there has been more than just like a colleague type of relationship. Like it's evolved into more of like a friendship, and they trust one another. So because they trust one another, they really put that time into like, sharing their patients and saying like, hey, listen, like I'm dealing with this with a patient, like maybe you, like with your expertise, like maybe you could help like offset, kind of the barriers that I'm experiencing, to like work together to, come to a conclusion with how we can aid this patient at the end of the day. And then and I wouldn't say I like vet people, but I do want to like ensure. Again, one time I had an interview with someone who is a chiropractor, and they wanted to just, get patients in and out every 5 minutes. Like, hey, I want to do an adjustment, see you later, adjustment, see you later. But that's not kind of the business mentality that we want to run. I want someone to come in and feeling like their time is valued, and feeling like, like they didn't just come in for like a business transaction. Like I want them to be fully aware that we do care about them. They're not just like a statistic or a number on our, revenue chart. Like they're actually someone that like we care about their family. We care about, we have that small chat with them from an admin perspective all the way into like the treatment rooms with the clinicians type thing. So that's always been a big thing for me, is just ensuring that the patients feel like they can come here and we're giving them our undivided attention. Because at the end of the day, there's a million multidisciplinary clinics. Like there's like 10 within a 10-kilometer radius of us. So I kind of wanted to, in a way of setting ourselves apart, is just like really hitting home that, it isn't just like a hi bye type thing. It's hey, how are you? Like I noticed it was like your kid's birthday last week. Like, what did you guys do for, his birthday? So just making them feel like when they walk into the clinic, it's more of like a welcoming environment, and more of a, hey, I'm coming in to chat with the front desk girls. And I think it was last Christmas, or maybe it was even the Christmas before. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So for like 4 years kind of back to back, I've just been having babies and raising babies.
Yeah.
So it was always kind of my fear to hand off that admin type of position, because I mean, yeah, obviously it's our business. So like I'm going to, really try and deliver the best type of customer service that I can. So me being not present, I was always like, there was a bit of fear kind of instilled into me. Like, are we going to still be able to deliver that type of customer service when I'm not there? And the girls just knock it out of the park. Like even from our Google reviews, it's like, oh, the front desk was so amazing. They like made me feel like, I was somebody, or like heard me out for my problems kind of thing. And it was last Christmas that when I walked in, all of the girls had like these little gifts at their stations. And I was like, oh, like who are these from? And patients would just come in and give them like Teams gift cards or like little homemade ornaments kind of thing, just as a thank you for, the past 6 months of, being there and listening to them. So that really spoke volumes for me, and made me feel, not that I wasn't confident, but just almost assured me that like we're doing okay.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I see it all the time. We see and speak with a lot of business owners, and when it's your business, it's your baby, and it's
Yeah.
really difficult to let go, even on some of the things that we're doing. And I've got a partnership with my significant other, and things with Jeff, the co-host of the show, and when you started it and you have it to try to give that away, it's like, well, they're not going to do it as good as I did it, but that's a part of growing. That's a part of scaling your business, is letting that go. And then it's also really nice when they reciprocate it and do it just as good, if not better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's definitely been, I would say that was probably one of like the fear points that I had. And I mean, I definitely, not to say that every day is a smooth day. You get your handful of, things that have gone wrong, or like an insurance company didn't cover something, and now you have to tell the patient like, hey, they're not covering this. And like, those aren't like the most fun conversations to have. But I've always gone with kind of like honesty is the best policy. Like, hey, listen, like this is what happened, and like whatever we can do to kind of make it right is like what we want to do. But like and I think it's because we have a good rapport with the patients, that there's like a sense of understanding, like we can only do what we can only do, or if someone's like benefits run out and they're like, hey, I still need like rehab, like what can I do? Like we'll send them home with like at home exercises, or like, do less frequent treatments so that it's nothing crazy out of pocket. So like we are going to we always try and do like what's in the best interest of the patient, but we also have to like continue to run a business and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, so when you're not helping people through their journey of healing and getting back to uh, the right health levels based on what's transpired in their lives, you mentioned that you've been doing a lot of momming recently, but when you're not working on or in the business, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, so like I said, I have a 4 and a 2-year-old, and they're a handful. They're not in daycare, so they are with me. They're my little sidekicks all day, every day, and I absolutely love it. They're my whole wide world. But me and my husband, we've always like organically been super like athletic. Like we always grew up playing sports, competitive sports. We absolutely love boating. My husband's Dan, he is like an avid wakeboarder. So every summer we get out in the wakeboard boat and he does all these crazy jumps and flips and does all of that kind of stuff. Soccer and volleyball is like really my thing. Like I love that. That being said, I feel like the older you get, I'm a really competitive person at heart. Like I don't, I actually don't enjoy playing sports for fun. If like, I'm not just like, oh, let's do this pickup volleyball game on the beach. And like, unless it's like we're in it to win it, I'm
Yeah,
out,
you want to be
you know?
smashing it in people's face.
Yeah, I do. And I feel like the older you get, it's almost more of like a, hey, we all gotta wake up early in the morning. So let's just like go easy. And I'm like, well, no, you know? So that was that like I'm kind of coming to the realization that that's just kind of the consensus of like, the older you get, it's just more so for fun. And I'm like, don't love that. Um, but yeah, I would say like, I mean, every summer too, we go camping. Like me and my husband were just talking about like, hey, should we just like grab a canoe and go out to Crown Land with the kids and just like live off the land? And I'm like, yeah, like it's probably gonna go terrible, but let's do it, you know? Like, I can't imagine, like, what if a storm who cares? Like, we're just gonna go for it. So yeah, I would say that we both are like, I would say more or less a bit of like adrenaline junkies. We like to be competitive in our sports. Um, Even in our dating years, like we'd go like whitewater rafting and go bungee jumping and all. I feel like skydiving is off the radar for us. That's just something that doesn't like I don't want to jump out of a plane. Like I don't even really love going on planes to begin with, you know? So jumping out of one out of like being my free will just doesn't sound like something that I'm like overly interested in. Um but I also think it's important to like explore the world. I'm not one of those people that, when we go on vacation, we just go to we don't just go to Dominican Republic because I guess it's easier with 2 young kids to kind of know where you're going, but I've always been a huge fan of like wanting to see more of the world. So that's on my list is to go to Thailand.
Oh, very cool. I just came
Mhm.
back from the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, and I mean, good weather, good food, nice beaches, like close to home, not a crazy time change, so like you really can't go wrong.
Yeah,
But I just feel like there's so much to see, you know?
totally. I want to meet your husband really bad because I
Yeah.
feel like we're kind of the same person. I'm very competitive. I also maybe not as athletic these days, but natural
Mhm.
athlete. Let's put it that way. Love volleyball. I played for the elites for a year.
Oh,
I was the
that was me, the
smallest
very
guy
least.
on the team at 6'1".
So, what was your position?
I was libero because again, I was the smallest guy on the team.
Was your vertical any good or not that
I
great?
had decent vertical. I had
Okay.
decent vertical, so I could match some guys. But you had other guys that were on the other team that were shorter than me. They could jump,
Yeah,
twice as high because they were freaks, right? And then they go right over the block. So they just put
yeah.
me in the back, and I like to dive and stuff. I play keeper in soccer because I can't kick the ball worth a shit. So
Mm. That's the problem. Yeah, so I played elites my whole life too. And actually now, I think it's because it's like close to home. We actually sponsored the Barrie elites team, like the girls team this
nice.
year. Just because, yeah, I think sports is important growing up, like kids can get like there's the potential to get in trouble or to get involved in like not great things. So like to be occupied in like sports or whatever it is that you want to be, interested in, I feel like it there is that important aspect of just, feeling like you're a part of a team and feeling like, people are relying on you for something. And I know I always enjoyed it, but I also feel like even now with kids, I'm kind of putting them in a little bit of everything. Like they're in skating lessons, soccer, gymnastics. And it's like,
Good.
what do you want to go into? It's not just like, I want them to be a soccer star and my husband wants Jack to play in the NHL in 20 years. But like, do they want to do that? Is that like, we can't live our dreams through them type thing.
Yeah, I'm also really competitive on lawn games.
Oh,
Any
okay.
type of lawn game, like the ring toss or beanbag, or
Love
I used
it.
to call it cornhole. Yeah, I'm all about doing that. So, people are like, oh, like, these are some new friends are coming over. I don't know them that well. And I just crush their soul.
I love it. That's honestly the only way to play it. Like again, it's not just like for fun. Like there needs to be like, I need a scoreboard. I need to know like the point differentials. It comes down to math. Like there needs to be like a semifinals, a quarterfinals. Like there needs to be a winning prize. Like you need to win something at the end of the day. That's how I was raised. So
You
that's
guys are awesome. I'm talking to my significant other. I'm going to say, hey, hon, I met this like amazing couple on the podcast today. Can we have them over for supper?
yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because like I've always been the one when me and my husband were first together. I feel like I was always like the extrovert, I could talk. That's probably from like my bartending experience way back when. Like you got to talk to everyone. But it is also interesting. Like he's definitely like in business ownership. He's now the one being able to, like have those conversations and talk to anyone out of the blue kind of thing. So it has like, I feel like the business is also like kind of helped us grow outside of our comfort zones, which has been a neat thing to kind of see evolve over the years.
Yeah, there's definitely a symbiotic relationship between all that. I was just talking to another guest on the show right before ours and talked a lot about how, business and your personal life, it all kind of intertwines. It's actually all one thing because you're so deeply invested in it and it's a large part of your life. But on the kind of flip side of that, that's where the symbiotic nature comes in, because being one allows you to be able to have a different life than, being stuck to the clock or answering to somebody between a, specific subset of, 9 to 5, where, you've got 2 young kids. So you're able to have the flexibility of being there for them. They don't have to be in daycare. So you get to have a bit of a different bond with your kids than otherwise if you weren't and they had to go to daycare, it'd be totally different.
Yeah, but I would say that I feel like there is a myth by like, most people work their standard 9 to 5 or whatever their shift may be. And I feel like there's this like, oh, business ownership, you get to just kind of do your own out. Like it doesn't turn off. Like I've never gone on vacation and not like been glued to my phone and like help put out a fire at like, because there was an emergency here or there. So I feel like that might be the only misconception that, yeah, I mean, my husband can block off his schedule to take Jack to his hockey lesson, but then it's not like the day ends there. Like we're on our computers, after the kids go to bed, like doing a Google ad campaign or like, doing whatever it is the business kind of needs. So I feel like the only difference between back in the day when I worked at the agency, it's like, okay, you clock it and you get to work at 9 and 5 o'clock, you go home type thing. That's not really the case. I feel like if you take time off, like the hours are spread out to, outside of the business hours.
Yeah. Or if you block it off and then you come back, it's always when you come back, it's just like, oh my God, shit's hitting the fan. There's so much going on here. It takes you a couple of minutes to get back into it.
Give me anxiety. Like to know that we're going on vacation. It's like you spend 2 to 3 weeks like prepping for that vacation and like making sure things are in order, before you actually go away.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll switch gears up a little bit here. So sometimes in life, we don't get to really necessarily pick and choose. We try to pick a path that's conducive for what our goals are, what we want. But sometimes in this game of life, it'll throw things at us or it'll present us with challenges or obstacles. We go through hardships. And so I'm curious to ask you, because, there's certain, if you can find silver linings when you go through those, it really helps kind of propel you forward. You'll learn from it. And then of course, hope is a very powerful thing. Our brains are a very powerful thing. And so have you ever gone through or experienced like a life hardship or a challenge that you've overcame? Maybe it made you better, maybe it made you stronger, or maybe you took a silver lining from it?
Yeah, I feel like we've been pretty like blessed in life to not have had anything like super traumatic or super intense kind of happen in our lives. I mean, obviously there's hardships and like you go through the days today, like whether a kid gets sick or like whether there's like something going on with whatever the case may be, like life definitely isn't like smooth sailing. But I also, I mean, one thing that can kind of stick out to me, and it is kind of like personal and business related. So like our daughter, my firstborn, she was born on March the 15th, 2020. So that was the day embedded in my brain when COVID came to be in Barrie, Ontario. So I mean, I'll never forget, like I'm at home, I'm like laboring all night at home, and I'm like calling my midwife and I'm like, something's going on, like something intense is going on. And she's like, I don't know, like the hospitals are closed down. Like, I don't like, we can't even get in. Like, what are we doing? And so like, there's a sense of panic because I'm like, well, I need help, you know?
Right.
And so we ended up going to the hospital. They wouldn't let us in. And we're like knocking on all the doors. And my husband's freaking out. He's like, my wife is having a baby. And they're like, sorry. And we're like, what? Like, what do you mean you're sorry? Like, what do we do? You know?
That's
And so we
crazy.
actually, yeah, it was nuts. It was absolute chaos. Like they're like, try that entrance. So like we're on the phone with the midwife and she's like, I'm trying to get in through the back. And we're like, what?
Oh my
What?
God.
So we finally got like a janitor to let us in, like through this like side door. And we're like, we gotta get in. We gotta get in. So they let us in. And we like go upstairs and it was like absolute chaos. And I mean, again, being like we were self-employed, like we run this business. So like me having a child meant like one, I don't get a mat leave, like a standard mat leave, like your average person would. And yeah, like the business still runs, you know what I mean? Like you like the hats that I wear like still need to be people still want to get paid. Like if I can't just like leave and be like, well, no one's gonna get paid for the next X amount of months. So that was a Sunday. So the Monday, obviously we came home at like 2 a.m. and we like my husband, like we're just kind of like figuring out life as like a new family of three. And we were kind of looking at the schedule for the clinic that day. And when an appointment is marked as red, that means like it's canceled or no showed or whatever. And he's looking at the schedule and it's like red, just like everything's red, like across the board is red. And so we weren't like, oh, let's watch the news, you know, like let's figure out kind of what's going on. And so in our heads, it
Right.
was like, we've been gone for 24 hours having a child and like what's going on with all the patients, you know, like why aren't like are we not calling them, are they just not showing, like what's happening?
Wow.
So I feel like there was like a little bit of like stress because we're like, okay, well we would like to take a day, you know, to like figure out what's going
Yeah,
on,
for
but
sure.
also like this business, like we also need to pay for the clinic, the overhead, the staff, like I don't know what's going on. So it was a bit of a whirlwind because like again, like now we're realizing that like COVID is a thing and like people are like healthcare was shut down, like physios and chiros, and like you could only practice if like, you know, it was an emergency type of appointment, but like what's deemed as an emergency, you know, like so there
All
was
the
all these,
unknowns.
yeah, we were just, and like 2 days after having a baby, like people are wanting ROEs because they want to claim certain things. It was just like, what? Like it, so I feel like it was a bit of a blessing in disguise because the world being shut down for that amount of time, it actually kind of allowed us to like be at home and like raise our newborn baby. You know, it like kind of had like an off switch to be like, well, there's no clinic to go to tomorrow. So like as much as you're thinking like, you know, you need to get back into the hustle and bustle, it was like the world's putting a pause on this business and many other businesses. But I think at that point too, like there was that fear, probably like many other people had, like, is my kid only going to ever see people in a mask? You know, is my kid like going to get like, am I just going to live in this little house for as long as I live? And like, are things ever going to open kind of back up again? And then at that time too, during COVID, we were opening up our second location. And then of course, like lumber's on back order and all these things are on back order. So there was just like that stress of like, okay, plans aren't going according to plan. Like you hire people to like be a part of a grand opening and it's like, well, I know we said we'd open in January and now it's looking like June, you know? So like I
Yeah.
feel like that was like a struggle to kind of figure out from both like raising a family and also owning a business. Like how are we making the two of these worlds like meet under this crazy life circumstance that everyone is going through?
Yeah, that's a pretty wild story. So you got
Mhm.
all those dynamics that are happening all at the same time, all while there's an unknown. I did a podcast with a gentleman that it actually saved his life. He
Oh,
had,
wow.
yeah, some really close family deaths. We're talking like parent, uncle, and then best
That's tough.
friend, like back to back, and then owning a business and then going through that experience. And if the world didn't shut off, he wouldn't have been able to mourn. And then he
Yeah.
says that I wouldn't be around if
Yeah.
that
No,
didn't
it's
happen.
true. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like, COVID is no fun, and, like, I don't wish that upon anyone or, like, even, like, the businesses that's the small businesses or, like, the people that were out jobs and, like, that sucks, like, no one wants that. But from, like, my personal experience, I did feel like it, like, allowed me to, like, put life on pause for a bit to, like, really one, just enjoy being a new mom, but to also not have that like secondary worry of like, hey, does admit need support? Like, do I need to, are we sending out a new email campaign? But at the same time, it was like, now that I brought a child into this world, the business needs to operate so that we can help raise our child. So like there
Yeah,
was just like a million different things that we're just kind of trying to piece together all at once. And like no one knows how long or like where this is going.
crazy.
Yeah, nuts. I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, I would second that motion with you there.
Mhm.
What's one thing that you wish our listeners knew about your business?
Um, to be honest, I feel like at the end of the day, I wish that and I hope that they for our current patients, like that Dan and I, being the business owners, we really want to just like create a place where people are being treated like with respect and with dignity, and our staff know that like they're not just like a number on the payroll that like I genuinely care about them and their families and their like, life wins and their hardships and stuff like that. I feel like it's one thing when we were like really small, we only had a handful of staff, like every Valentine's Day I would write personal notes. And then like as we grow, like I think one thing that I'm like super in tune with is making sure that every single one of our staff and patients like feel that kind of value and know that at the end of the day like we have like when we started this business like we wanted to be like honest, ethical, moral, like we never wanted to you hear all these things kind of in healthcare like funny business like, oh, get this and you get a free this kind of thing. Like we always wanted to like maintain like a high level of authenticity too, to know that like I'm not trying to make anyone's lives like we're trying to help them at the end of the day. But that at the same time like we're only two human beings and like I'm not a perfect human and like my husband isn't perfect, but like and we're still learning every single day. Like there's things that come up that I'm like, I actually don't know the answer to that, but like I'm going to try and figure that out. So just in knowing that we really started this business to help the community and to really try and deliver that level of customer service that people want to come back for, not just because we have like John, for example, he's one of our senior physios. He's been rated like top physio in Barrie for the past 4 or 5 years. So just in knowing that they're also just not going to get oh, okay, we're going to see you for half an hour. We're going to put you on like an ultrasound machine. We're going to, see you next week kind of thing, like run your benefits through the ground. We actually want to help you. We want to be able to get to the root of the problem because at the end of the day, when we see patients like leave after 6 weeks of rehab and they're like, wow, like, do I ever feel different leaving this place than I did coming here? They tell 5, 10 of their family and friends. And that's like that word of mouth speaks so many more volumes and like is such a better business practice to kind of go off of rather than just like popping out those Google ad campaigns like, oh, I just happened to stumble upon you on Google kind of thing, which I mean it can be great and that's how we get clients too, but just knowing that people come to us, have such a great experience, and then tell their friends because they want to be treated, they want their family or friends to be treated kind of the same way. It's something that like, I want people to know that we really do care about them more than just that transaction.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand with, like you were saying, with your culture and how you treat your staff and having that kind of myofam jam going on. It starts at the core, right? And the foundation, and then building out, and the clients get to be the benefactors of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
And okay, so if there's anybody, listening to the show, not if, when, because definitely that was an interesting conversation. You're hilarious, by the way. Great personality. Can't wait to meet your husband.
Don't tell me that too much. My head won't be able to fit through the door. I pride myself on like trying to be funny, so I appreciate that.
Thank Dan. Tell him I said that. I hope he can't fit through the front door when he gets home. It's going to be hilarious to watch. But if when anybody's interested, they want to know a little bit more about you guys, what's the best way that they can go ahead and reach you?
I mean, I would always just say checking out our website. I feel like our website's pretty all encompassing. It has like all of our staff bios, their specialties, like when you can book with them. It also like, if you type in our website, like ankle injury, it's going to populate a whole bunch of things that you can kind of work on, or who you can see. So I feel like the website is also like probably one of the biggest hubs to kind of find out more. I mean, obviously we have our phone numbers at different locations and stuff like that as well. We have our emails, but website is probably the place that you can go to learn a little bit more. And
what's the address for that?
It is www.myodynamic.ca.
Myodynamic.ca.
So myo, if I can touch on that a little bit. Yeah. So myo, the Latin word for myo is muscle, and dynamic, and I'm probably going to screw this up, but it's like the word dynamic is the force that stimulates change. So our idea and kind of thinking of, like we are a force to stimulate the change within your muscles. That's myodynamic.
That is super cool.
Yeah. And I mean, at one point we often refer to ourselves just as myo because we rebranded to MyoDynamic. And then I was like, that's a lot of syllables. Like that's a bit of a mouthful. But I think and actually after the fact, when we named it MyoDynamic, I mean, my name's Michelle. My husband's name is Dan. So it's MD as the initials. And I always make a point that M comes before D in MyoDynamic. Very happy about that. It's not dynamic myo. It is myodynamic.
Let's continue to remind him. I will assist you in continuing to remind him when I do meet him. Very cool. Awesome conversation. Great business. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and looking forward to doing this down the line.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Sean. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com, or call 705-413-3775.